Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for joining me at Groove Diner After Dark. This is the beginning of a new show, and I'm so glad to have you all here with me tonight. So listen, what's in a name? I wish I could say it was something like, Shakespearean, a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet, but that is simply not the case. What's the deal with Groove Diner? It's this. I'm a drummer, and we groove. I like food. I like to cook in particular. So cooking and drumming and cooking, two things that I like to do and that I'm not really terrible at. So when it was time to name my publishing company and my everything else, I just thought of the two things and jammed them together, and here we have a Groove Diner. So also the studio, which as you can see has been changed pretty radically actually. The studio itself is called the Groove Diner. So the Groove Diner, everything about my world has been Groove Diner for about 10 years actually. Hence Groove Diner After Dark, because here we are at 10 p.m. Pacific again. Thank you to everybody that's joined me week after week after week after week. And tonight we've got a really great new lineup, a new show, a new way of doing this whole thing. I'm super excited to have Tyler Zarzeka, that's right, with me tonight. He's a longtime friend and a truly great guy and a great drummer, and I can't wait for you guys to meet him and talk with him and ask him all the questions that I know you're going to have for him. I can't start this thing without saying thank you to quite a few people. First and foremost to Brian Oshab for the intro that you just saw, which is just killer. I mean, he cut that together. He's an Emmy-winning director who's a friend of mine, and he hire him. He's that good. Man, he's incredible. So Brian Oshab, check him out online. He's the real thing. Eli Jera is another very close friend that's helped me. He's actually the producer of this. Some of you may remember that a year ago, prior to COVID, we were starting to do a television talk show that was going to be out on the road and live and sitting and talking with friends and just discussing life, love, and the pursuit of drummingness. And obviously COVID had different plans for us than that. So this is where we are now. At some point we'll get back to a Groove Diner on the road or something like that. But for now, we're going to do it right here. So Eli has been instrumental in getting this whole thing rolling again. And finally, Daniel East, the mix doctor himself, he is responsible for all the amazing graphics you guys have been seeing for about a week now. Daniel has been a friend of mine for many, many years. And obviously, he does great work also. So Daniel East at ECI Communications, he's phenomenal. So again, if you need anything done, hit my people up. Hey, Veronica, welcome from Australia. It's good to see you tonight. I was hoping you'd make it. Hey, Toby, thanks for saying hello to everybody. Oh, there's Dan as well. Nice to see you guys joining in. And oh, Keith Tenenbaum, what's happening, man? I know the countdown. Yeah, I get it, brother. It's sort of one of those things that makes you kind of feel like something big's coming. And the countdown led to a great intro, and now you just have to listen to me talk for a minute. I'm not sure how you should feel about that. So anyway, tonight we're going to talk with Tyler in just a couple of minutes about his journey into drummingness, and then we'll talk a little more about a few other things after we let him go. Tyler Zarzeka is he's one of those guys. We met at a drum function hang. I don't even remember what it was. Tyler probably doesn't either. But we just kind of hit it off right off the bat and became friends, and we've subsequently sought each other out at drum hangs when maybe we were the ones that didn't know as many people. And so we will end up hanging out a little bit and talking, and acting like we know, like we're supposed to be there. And Tyler's that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that you like to spend some time with. His career has been kind of phenomenal. He's done the drum tech thing. He was with Usher. I think he may even still be with Usher. But he did the overall tech thing with Usher for many, many years. And he made the leap to player, and that's a challenging thing to do, to make that jump from tech to player. And I'm really intrigued to hear how he did that. It doesn't happen often, but part of that speaks to the kind of guy he is and the kind of player he is as well. Tyler, hey Tyler, how you doing, man?
Hey.
Everybody, welcome, Tyler.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining me. You're my very first guest ever.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited.
It's pretty
Very
cool.
excited.
Thanks for spending some time, man. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a couple of things. Like I always remember Eddie Murphy when he was on Arsenio Hall way back in the day, and
Uh-huh.
and Arsenio was asking Eddie all these questions as if he wasn't, as if they didn't know each other, and Eddie Murphy got sort of frustrated. Like, man, they know we know each other, so that's kind of where I am with you. Is I'm going to be asking you questions, even though I kind of know some of the answers.
Yeah.
Some, not all. Anyway, I am curious about a few things that maybe I didn't know before. Tell me, where did you grow up? How did you first find yourself bitten by the musical bug? Tell me a little bit about that background of you.
Yeah, so I'm from Northern California, Sacramento to be exact, and I loved music my whole life. I was very much into singing in choir in elementary school, and there was always music on in the house or in the car, and I loved music, but drums never stuck out until I was about 16 years old. I think I saw my first real concert, which was Blink-182 when I was 15. And my dad took me to the concert. We actually had such bad seats I couldn't even see Travis Barker. But I knew that I wanted something that could take me out of the shell that I was in. And as weird as that sounds, when I saw this concert and I saw the way people were worshiping, Tom DeLonge and Mark Hoppus, it made me think like, oh, maybe if I played an instrument well, people would look at me, people would notice me. And in high school, I had no friends. I was, bottom of the totem pole. Right. And it seemed like if I could really excel at an instrument, maybe somebody would notice me. Maybe I could have some friends. And then I happened to see at like a school concert, like they let this band play in the quad. It was the weirdest thing, but I got to watch a drummer like up close for the first time, and it was just a buddy of mine. Cool. And he just had such good interdependence between his arms and limbs, and I loved it. And something just shined that day, and I was like, you know what? I think I could do that. I think I could wrap my head around the drums, not knowing how difficult it would be, but I kind of just chose it on the fly. I just loved music, and I started tapping on the desk like we all do in high school, and it just seemed like, okay, I'm gonna go kind of towards drums. And it just kind of fell in that way. I had friends in bands, and I just started hanging out with the right people, and I didn't get my first drum set until I was 17 years old. I started very, very late compared to all my peers, compared to, I'm sure, you.
Actually,
as well.
No, you've actually got me beat in that regard. I started.
Really?
I started on snare drum earlier, but I didn't get my first drum set until I was 20, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so talk about being late.
It's never too late. Never too late.
It's really not. It's really cool that you were moved by what you saw, on stage. I think that's cool, and so often we're influenced by people we see up close, and I love that. And it gets lost, People all talk about, Travis or Vinnie Colaiuta or whoever, but a lot of times it's guys that we see playing at a local dance hall or whatever. So I get that, man. That's really cool. What was it? Yeah. What made you think, I'm good enough that I can actually really do this? Because you're a killer player. And so at what point did you go, I've got that thing?
Well, I didn't think I had it at all right away. I had no natural talent.
That sounds familiar to me, man. I feel the same way.
The crazy thing was, it's like, I don't know. For a split second, I thought guitar might be my path.
Oh, okay.
For I'm talking days. For days, I was like, you know what? I think I could play guitar. And then I kind of just checked myself, and I was like, no, and it wasn't a cool factor. It was what I saw on MTV, how I saw bands being portrayed, and I just wanted an in. And I knew I couldn't sing to save my life. I know when I'm off key, and I sing in the car all the time, but I know that I'm not good. I know that's not my career or my dream goal. Right. But for some reason, like I felt like the mathematical side of drums, everything is a grid. Everything seemed like this weird structure that was in time and space that I could figure out. That was the easy part. Guitar was chords, and you had to understand melodies, and you had to understand why each chord played with each other, where drums, you could basically hit what you wanted to, and it could be considered art. And I was like, that seems like a path for me. And no one in my family was musical. I had played saxophone for 2 years in junior high, and that's where I kind of learned how to read. And so I understood that musical notations kind of worked in a certain way, and for drums it was a lot simpler in a way and more difficult in other ways than versus reading chords and multiple notes on stuff on double lines. So it really was just the luck of the draw. I don't know. If I grew up in a different country where the drum set didn't exist, I'd probably be playing some weird instrument. I have no idea, but it would be percussive, if anything.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Hanging on the wall over there is a guitar. I haven't had one in a long time. And I got a guitar fairly recently and started learning it. And the irony of it is that mathematical grid that you're talking about, I'm applying it to guitar in a way that I never could when I was younger. So
interesting.
It's all just shapes and whatnot, and I totally see it that way. That's kind of fun, man. And by the way,
the crazy part is, so no, keep going.
No, the crazy part.
I was just gonna say, and we'll talk about it at some point. But when I went to music school, you had to learn another instrument. You had to take another instrument as part of your course, and so I took piano. And the funny thing about piano is I can play any ostinato with my right and left hand if you show it to me, or if I can have a second to figure it out.
Right.
But I don't know why I'm playing those chords.
Right.
It's like I have that left side brain or right side brain, whatever that side is, that makes me figure that stuff out. But I just don't understand how the circle of fifths work. I don't want to know. I want to leave that up to other musicians who make real beautiful music and that I can enjoy. It's the one last thing I can enjoy as a drummer musician is listening to stuff that I can't physically do myself.
I get that. I do, man. I do. I took some music theory in college and learned about said circle of fifths and whatnot, and it serves me well now that I'm a composer. Like that piece of music you heard at the top, when I was writing that, I had to understand what I was doing, and I play piano badly, so I get it, man. I totally do. Well, speaking of music school, you went to Musicians Institute here in Hollywood, right? What brought you here, and tell me what that was like for you. Did you find it useful? As I have a lot of people who are high school age, just beginning to think about going into college and into a life that'll watch this tonight and over the next 24 hours or so. So I know they'd like to hear what your experience was like, what you feel like you got out of it, and what you might have done differently or better or whatever. So please.
Well, the precursor to how I even got to MI was my dad and my mom were very adamant on me going to college. I was the firstborn, and they were just like, we want you to go to a 4-year college. And the second I started playing drums, they're just like, oh, this is a hobby. This is not a career. Look at everyone else. This is not for you. And I fought them on that. I really felt like I could do something with this if I put my mind to it. But they were still stuck on me going to school, and I'm really glad they did. It was the best decision that they could have helped me make, because I don't know if I would have made it on my own if I was on my own. And we really didn't have that many options. There was 2 schools my dad found when he Googled it back in 2004, and it was Berklee School of Music or Musicians Institute. Those were the 2 top searches. And Berklee was very far away and very expensive, and Musicians Institute was in SoCal, and it was only a 7-hour drive. And it was a lot cheaper. So it made sense to kind of choose MI. And I was excited. They made a whole school that I could play drums and get a degree on. I was just like, I didn't know this existed. And so I just kind of went for it. My parents helped me move, and I auditioned prior and I had one drum teacher before I even left to go to LA, and he kind of just taught me the basics and taught me how to at least get through the auditioning process to get into MI. But I was stoked they accepted me, and honestly, I can't praise that school enough for what it did for me as a player. When I started in 2005, I was the worst drummer at that school.
That's always the goal,
and
isn't it? Don't you always want to be the worst, like the worst guy in the band or the worst student, so that you have a long way to go?
No.
I do.
Not. It wasn't a good feeling. I didn't walk in and was like, wow, I'm really terrible. No, I walked in, and it's a funny story. I'll try to shorten it up for you. But my first day at music school, I had to play with a bass player and a guitar player. Right. And the teacher put a chart in front of every student, was like, play this simple song that you all know with a bass player and a guitar player you've never played with. You have to count them in, play. It was 8 bars verse, 8 bar chorus, 8 bars out, and you were done.
Right.
And the song was Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
Right.
Who doesn't know that song, right? And so I get up to play the song. I finish, and I'm nervous. I'm shaking. And the teacher is just like, your timing is terrible. You're swinging when you think you're playing straight. You can't hit a rim shot to save your life. And your tempo is terrible.
Okay, there you
go. Sit down. And the person that played after me is now a good friend, Benny Rogers. He became the drummer for Mariah Carey 2 years later. And it was the first time I actually heard a real drummer play real music with real people.
Yep.
And that was my first day at music school.
There you go.
And I had still 2.5 years left to complete this program and degree. And I was just like, it was great. I needed it. I needed that kick in the ass so hard. And nothing made me feel so much worse than to watch a real drummer. Benny was already to music school for, I don't know why, for fun.
Right. Yeah.
And it really was the best thing that happened to me. That school taught everything to me. I learned so many different styles. They taught you how to audition, how to work with other musicians, and how to succeed as a working drummer in a very high active community that is LA. Everyone's a musician in LA. Everyone's a drummer. Everyone I know is a drummer.
I know, right?
So yeah, it was I wouldn't be where I am without that school.
I mean, it's swimming with the sharks out here, no doubt about it. And,
yeah, for sure.
And you've done a great job of that, man. I mean, so you know, speaking to all of that and how to work, the tech work that you've done. That's when you and I first met. You were teching for Aaron Spears.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I first met you. And
yeah.
So how did that, was that part of the MI connection, or was that something that you built to, or how did you find this particular thing?
Kind of, yeah. And actually, precursor to that, you were talking about me before I came on, and I think we met at a Remo or Vic Firth lunch.
That's right. I think it was the Remo thing, in fact.
At some little place in North Hollywood where
right.
Ben, our artist rep for Vic Firth, took us to. That was, I think, the first time we met, and I was a young kid. I knew nothing, and you were already successful, and I was like, wow, look at this guy.
Yeah, that's what you did, I'm sure, yeah.
I did, I promise. But no, so the crazy thing about how I got into a tech was I graduated Musicians Institute, and I didn't know how to tune my drums.
Oh.
They have since changed that. They now have a program and a class where you learn how to tune and maintain your drums. But when I graduated many, many years ago, this wasn't a thing. And I just met a friend who was kind of in the recording program, kind of in drums.
Right.
And I got a cold call from him one day asking if I wanted to work at this company called Center Staging.
I wondered.
And Center Staging is a beautiful rehearsal company in Burbank, California. Yeah. Very high prestige rehearsal place.
So nice.
And
so nice.
It's best.
It's incredible, yeah.
And I love it to this day.
I do too.
I love rehearsing there. I love doing anything there. Yeah. But so he asked me if I wanted to work there, and he's like, "Oh, we'll train you. We'll teach you how we tune. We'll teach you what we do." And it was great. And that was my foot in the door of what kind of being a tech was. Although it wasn't. I was just maintaining gear. I was setting up drums in studios, but I wasn't touring on the road. I didn't know what that was even like still. And so I was still trying to find myself. I was being a drummer. I was being a tech. Sure. I was trying to find work in any way possible. I just wanted to be in the music industry making money.
Of course. And
I actually had a mini drum career before I really kind of put my place and set into being a tech.
Yeah.
But so it was just a weird coincidence that I met this guy who got me this job, which then led me to other jobs. It was just this weird event that just kind of spiraled. And then I loved it. I was working with some of the best musicians in the world on some of the biggest stages and biggest arenas in the world.
Sure.
And yes, I wasn't drumming. That was always a thought every single day in the back of my mind, and it was kind of frustrating. But I was making money, and I could show that, and I could hold my head up high to my parents and say, "Hey, I'm surviving in a music world, in this industry that is impenetrable."
It's designed to make you fail. This industry is designed to make people fail.
Yeah. So it was a weird thing, but then I realized I loved it. I love working with drums. I'm a tinkerer. I always fix things at home, and fixing drums is just another thing that we have to do, and I love it. I love tuning. I know a lot of my drummer buddies, they hate tuning. They hate making their logos straight. You know,
I knew you'd say that.
And you knew I was going to go there.
Okay, so just for that.
Running joke, yeah.
Just for that. There you go. Nothing straight.
That's okay.
I never have them straight. Yeah, I send Tyler snapshots of my crooked logos because it makes him crazy.
It does, yeah. It's the weird ADD thing in me, or like the OCD, I should say.
Right.
Part of me that just like everything should be perfect. Like drums should be perfectly tuned, and they should look the same way as they sound. And your drums are too pretty to have their logos be kind of crooked.
Well, they are always really impeccably tuned. I will say that. So I spend a lot of time tuning. So
good.
Oh man,
but yeah, that's funny.
Cool. So tell me, so moving the step from tech to player, that's the jump, that's the leap, and it's usually a pretty serious canyon of a jump.
Yeah.
Who else? Charlie Benanti, maybe.
I think who's the virtuoso guitar player? What's his name? He shreds. I heard that he was a guitar tech turned into a guitar player.
Yeah.
He wears the hat. Dude with the hat. Oh,
I don't know.
Something band, something. I can't. Anyway, it'll come to me later.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah. But
you managed to make
it's
that.
Not, I feel like it's more easier to become just a successful rock band than it was to do that to this, because it didn't help me in any way. Being a tech was great, but all those connections I made, everyone saw me as a tech.
Right.
They're like, oh, Tyler, he's a fantastic tech. He shows up on time. He does the work he wants to, and that's it. I never overstepped my boundaries. I never went up to everyone and was like, hey, by the way, I play drums. Here's my resume. I want to do this. I don't really want to do what I'm doing right now. I want to be a drummer. I never approached it that way.
Well, you would have gotten fired from your tech gig had you done that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I knew that. It's just one of the things. Nobody wants to be bugged with those things. Right. And so when I'm teching for Aaron Spears, Aaron obviously knew I was a drummer, but I never went up to him and was like, hey, man, that was a cool, paradiddle diddle. Can you show me that other lick later?
Right.
I was like, how was your show? What do you need? What can I do to make your life better? And you kind of are a glorified assistant for the most part with knowledge of a lot of music equipment. But what I took away from being a tech was just how to mentally approach gigs. I watched drummers and other musicians in rehearsals for weeks and weeks, and I kind of saw how they went about working with songs. It was really, really cool. So that was a good takeaway. But the jump was the hard part. And the jump really happened when I was working with Demi Lovato. So after 4 years of touring with Usher went to go film a movie. And I got hired on to work for the drummer for Demi Lovato, Mike Reed. Fantastic drummer. He's I think he's played with Charlie Puth since then, and Rihanna, and a bunch of other people.
Right.
And after 2 years with Demi, I got a call from a music director buddy of mine, and he was just blatant about it. He was like, hey, dude, I miss you as a drummer. I know you like the tech world, but I'm giving you an opportunity, but you have to quit being a tech. This is the last opportunity I will give you. And if you do this, I think you could be very successful as a drummer. And I had money. I had a savings account. I finally was like happy, and life was good. But the one thing I was missing was playing professionally full time. And so it was perfect time. I just was like, fine. And I quit Demi Lovato, which was not an easy task.
Sure.
If you've ever toured, that family that you get on the road, whether it's crew, band, whatever, that was my family for 2 years. And I wrote a long, sad letter to my production manager and the entire crew, thanking them for the time, saying that I wasn't, half-assing my job, but I feel like this is my calling and I really want to try this. And I got a short response back from my production manager saying, hey, I hope to see you playing, soon. And the amazing ending to that story was 2 years later, I was playing a jingle ball and I was playing drums for Charlie Puth, and right after me was Demi Lovato.
Nice.
And everyone from that camp, including Demi, came and watched me play with Charlie Puth. That's all I wanted. We were playing Staples Center, and I could not care less. I just cared about the 7 people
Right.
that were my family that were watching. It was really, really sweet moment.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic.
But so it was difficult. I took a pay cut. I went from making a decent amount of money to kind of struggling again, and hoping for work. That he offered me one tour, which was amazing, but after that tour ended, there was nothing for me after that, and I just walked away from a long run with Demi, which she kept going for years after that. So it was hard, but that one gig, I showed up, I did my job, I gave it 100%, I did good. And then that music director hired me for something else. And then that led to bigger and better things. So I just kept putting in the work, and I just kept trying, and I just never gave up. And it seemed to really work out for me.
Well, and on that note, go ahead and let's hear the list. So it's Charlie Puth, it's Kiara, it's continue, please. This is your moment. Let's do it.
My tech resume is severely longer.
Let's get your playing resume though.
Yeah, playing resume. Well, so I'll give you the top. I started with this girl, Leslie Roy. She's an amazing pop singer out of Ireland, and that was my first tour bus experience. And I owe a lot to everything I learned touring with Leslie. I've played for Cher Lloyd. I played for Charlie Puth, which you said, Kiara. I'm still with Kiara, electronic pop singer. I've been with her for 4 years now. Right. Been with Noah Cyrus for 3 years. I play with one of the Backstreet Boys, AJ McLean.
AJ, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I do his side project, which was country, now going back to pop.
Yeah, you and I off camera will talk about the AJ thing because I have a strange connection to that.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
God, I'm trying to think who else I'd play for. So new gig for me is a band called Why Don't We?
I saw the Good Morning America, right?
Yeah. No, what did we do? We did Good Morning America and Late Late Show. Right.
Right.
Last month.
Yeah.
But that's a new gig for me. I actually got that mid-quarantine.
Nice.
Which was not expected by any means.
Well, okay, so let's take this
it's
moment.
Such a blessing. But you can look at you go to my Instagram. It'll say everyone I play for.
So here's the thing. How does Tyler, in the middle of a pandemic, get a brand new gig? And the answer is, the whole reason I wanted him on here was to tell his pandemic story. Okay? That, and I just like the guy. So Tyler did something. We've been talking. Everybody that's been watching this we've been talking about things that we've done during the pandemic to make ends meet, to keep our sanity, whatever it might be. Well, I'm going to tell them what you've done, and I want to hear the story, and I want you to tell us the story about how this happened. But when Tyler's gigs had to come to an end, just as we all had our gigs come to an end, he decided that a good idea would be to become to start working at a COVID testing center. So he has been testing people for COVID-19 for what, a year almost? Not quite, I guess.
Well, yeah, 9 months, and then we've now turned into a vaccine site for the last 3 months.
Right. Yeah. So he's got a 5 a.m. call in the morning to go jab people. But I just think it's amazing that you did that. I think that speaks to the quality of human that you are, that you thought to do that. It wasn't just about what can I do for me, but you went and you did something for other people, and I thought that was absolutely amazing, and I applaud you, sir, for that.
Thank you.
Tremendous that you did that. So please tell us what was the thought process there, and how did you even find a gig doing that?
It was weird. It was the luck of the draw again. That
was not lucky. You did that.
Well, I was searching. I'm sure a lot of other musicians were searching as well, and that was the tough thing. When the pandemic first hit, and we were all like, "Crap, we don't know how long it's gonna last." We all thought it was gonna be 6 months. We thought it was gonna be a year. I didn't want to just wait. I didn't want to think that the government was going to give me money to survive. Yes, they've given us a little bit. Yes, unemployment is a thing, but unemployment ran out. It can run out. Like I looked it up. I only had $10,000 of unemployment to spend, and I knew if I had started it when the pandemic started, I'd be out of it months ago, as of now. And so that wasn't an opportunity. And my dad was just like, find a job, do whatever you can. And he was my only voice of reason. All my other friends were like, oh, I'm sitting at home. I'm going to work on my paradiddles. I'm going to record my own album for fun. Like, I'm going to take this time off and relax. And I just couldn't see relaxing as an option. It just didn't make any sense. Sure. I didn't know that a nonprofit existed to where I could help out. I was actually just searching for anything. I was looking for grocery store work. And this was the time where everyone was freaking out. Nobody wanted to hire anybody because everyone thought they had COVID.
Right.
So I couldn't find a job. The only thing I could find was DoorDash, and I wasn't gonna do that to my car or my body or my mental state. And I just kept putting out feelers, seeing if anybody knew about anything. And surprisingly enough, the keyboardist for Kiara was working at this testing site then. And he's like, hey, we're hiring, come by. They'll train you everything you need to know, and then we'll hire you if we need to. And I ended up getting the job, and it was the greatest thing ever. I've always wanted to kind of help out in some sort of way, whether it be nonprofit or not. And it worked out really well. And it was a lot of work. It's been a crazy last 10 months now. But it was probably the best decision I could have made. And I'm very, very happy for it.
Any idea how many tests you administer in the course of a day?
So testing, man, when I first started testing, we were only testing about 800 people a day. And when testing ended, we were testing 6,000 people a day at my site alone.
Wow.
There are bigger sites that test a lot. 6,000 people a day, and that's in just one pocket of Los Angeles. We have 15 sites across Los Angeles, and not including across America. So that was a very, very big help. But now that we are turned vaccine site, since it's still new and ramping inwards instead of outwards, we're giving vaccines about 2,000 a day.
Wow.
From my site, which is really, really good.
That's
and
amazing.
Those numbers just keep going up and up and up and up just because of distributions coming out with all new vaccines and whatever.
Well, at some point I hope to be on the list. I'm not eligible yet, but soon.
It keeps creeping up, man. It's the craziest thing. Every day we work alongside the Los Angeles Fire Department very closely, and we hear a lot of stuff. And I thought a lot of my friends would be 6 months, 8 months out from when it kind of started. And it seems like everyone's going to be 3 months out before we can all have that opportunity, which is really, really good. Don't quote me on it. Who knows? Anything can happen. But it seems to be covering the mutation side of it too.
That's good.
And I've been lucky enough to get vaccinated, and I can't recommend it anymore.
So ultimately what you're telling me is that you saw the future and you came off the road and you immediately decided, I'm going to start testing so that when they create a vaccine, I can be the first and only drummer in LA to get a vaccine so that I can get a road gig and get out of here. Is that what that was? It was this big...
The funniest thing was I never even thought that I wish I could say, like, I wish you would believe me, and I know you won't. I never even thought that was a thing, because I always thought, like, our job is for testing. Right. If they ever do vaccines, like, somebody else is going to take over it. They're not going to use us.
Right.
Because I'm not a nurse. I can't physically actually administer the shot. Right. And then they made it happen. So, and I don't administer the shots, but we do have actual nurses. It's a whole legal thing. There's no way. But my site and my company that I work for still kind of helps along the process of getting people in, dealing with traffic, filling out information, all that stuff. So we're still very beneficial in what's needed. But I never thought it would get that. I never thought the vaccine would be the end road for me. Right. It was an amazing bonus. I felt like I was taking away from somebody else, but it was one of those things where if a site was running or had a surplus of vaccines, you had to get rid of it. And so I was just lucky because I was technically a frontline worker. Hey, look, my mom's here.
Yeah, I know.
Hi, Mom.
Right? And look at that. She says good things about you, so that must be all right. Well,
She's my number one fan. She's my number one. I got mom tattooed on my knuckles.
I love it.
There we go.
That's awesome. So one final question, and I'll let you go since I know you've got a busy day tomorrow ahead of you.
Oh, yeah.
Kendall Johnson has asked you a question. There have been a couple of questions that have come your way here, but I'd like to just kind of congeal them into one thing. Ultimately, what would you tell somebody who is thinking about going into this crazy life of ours? They hear from me all the time what I think about it. What do you think? What do you think? How do you feel about someone just beginning now?
Well, if you're beginning now, I think that's the best thing you can. I think if you had just moved to LA and you were at the prime of your career, this is a bad year for you, and it's going to be kind of slow to start. I was skeptical on how I thought the world would be concert-wise after the pandemic was over. Mm-hmm. And I was actually talking to my girlfriend a few months ago about this. I had like this weird vision. I was standing in line one day and I had this vision that I was at a concert and everyone was wearing a mask. But it wasn't 50% capacity, it was 100% capacity. And people were just wearing masks because they wanted to wear masks. Like in my mind, it was years in advance. But we kind of took on the Japanese culture. If you've ever been to Japan, everyone wears a mask in the subway. We as Americans took that on in my mindset. And it was comforting and it was great. And I was like, man, if this was the way it went, that's fine. If half the people want to wear masks, cool, go for it. Whatever makes you feel safe. But as long as we can have music, because I think everyone's missing that live shows. I miss going to live shows.
Me too.
I miss going to the crappy local shows and then the big one. Yeah, like I miss it all more than I thought I would. So I really think it's something that could be back to normalize in probably another year.
Yeah.
I have on the radar a few shows coming towards the end of this year and a possible tour for next year. But it's still kind of up in the air. Who knows what's going to happen?
Right.
But for somebody right now that's just starting out, I think it's just a great time to kind of hunker down, focus on who you are and who you want to be when the world gets back to normal. How do people want to see you? You know, how did you act through this whole time? You know, were you egotistical? Were you depressed? You know, and I can relate to being depressed. I was very depressed for the first 3 months of the pandemic. I wanted to quit music. So that I know those thoughts are something that other people are having, but
yeah, for sure.
I knew we just had to get past it. We just had to just stay strong and survive through all this. So it could be a great world to come into. It just depends on what you really want to do. You know, if you want to tour, are you capable of touring? Do you have a family at home that you can leave for months at a time? Or are you single and don't care? You know, that's always a big thing. Or do you want to be a studio session drummer that only does like recording sessions in a city that you live in? That's also a great thing for somebody who has a family or kids or anything like that. So it's I'm trying to stay positive as much as possible with everyone's future goals and careers and students that I'm talking to as well. They have the same questions for me. They're like, you know, is this even worth it? And I really think it is. I think it is. And if it's not, if I couldn't play a show again for money, nothing would change. My living room would still have 4 drum kits in it. I would have all the snare drums. I would still practice and I would still play to music in my headphones, staring at a wall.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, you know, and that still brings me joy.
I miss that. I miss the idea of playing for the pure joy of it, as opposed to putting food on the table part of it. I'm glad I get to.
You always have to have. You have to have that balance. You have to.
And I lost sight of that. And honestly, through the course of the pandemic, I've been up and down with it. And I've kind of come back on the other side of it now, where I'm starting to feel that joy. So I love that that's how you're feeling about everything. And thank you for sharing that with everybody here.
Yeah, of course.
That's great words of wisdom. Thank you so much for your time and for hanging out with us tonight, man. I'm gonna show a little 30-second snippet of you playing along with Noah Cyrus here.
Everyone plug your ears.
Yeah. Thanks again, man. And I will catch up with you soon. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
You got it. I'll talk to you later.
All right, see you, dude. This little piece that I just played here, this tom thing,
that thing. I wanted to talk to you guys about that, and that is the intro, the video that you saw at the very top. So I'm going to show you that piece. That's this. So that piece of music was something that I wrote many years ago with Mick Mahan on bass and Dave Amato on guitar. We did that for something NASCAR oriented way back in the day, and now it's something that I own. So it's going to become the theme song to this new show. And the whole piece was based around that drum thing that I just showed you guys. Hey, Aunt Kathy, my aunt's here. How you doing? It's good to see you. So that piece of music came about because of this drum thing. And it started with just me goofing around with, well, the 3/2 polyrhythm, right? So if we're 1, triple, we've all done this, right? So you play 3 in your right hand, 2 in your left hand. That's all it is. So with the 3/2 thing happening, I started messing around with that at a sound check one day, and I came up with this tom thing. Super simple. Well, I began to think about it in terms of a musical piece, and what could I compose around that piece? The first thing I thought of was, okay, if I'm playing triplets in my right hand, see, I messed it up. By putting that bass drum part in right at the tail end on the last six tuplet of that, all of a sudden I was giving some propulsion to the front side of this, to this whole thing. And by putting that kick drum in, suddenly this 3/2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, all of a sudden became a groove. And I'm doing this fun sound check thing, you know, and every time a drummer does a sound check, we have to give all the different parts of the kit. I mean, that's ultimately what a sound check is like. It drives us out of our minds. So ultimately, the groove became, so I'd pull back and hit the snare drum on 2. Pull back and hit that snare drum on 2. And then, of course, by building in the kick drum, I started to play 30-second notes there. And I messed that up again. So by putting the 30-second note in it was really starting to drive forward quite a bit. And then I started to double the right hand, like this. Which added yet another piece of musical motion to it. And then the oddball hi-hat thing happened. Quarter note triplets, but they start on the up, which is just weird. But that's what the entire song was built around, was that one little sound check thing. And I thought I'd show you guys, how to build it, because I get asked about this quite a lot. It's an interesting thing to me, just how often people are curious about that, you know. So ultimately, triple it, played at the same time. It's that thing we all did. It's, you know, this thing, right? We all learned to do that when we were in grade school or whatever. Built in with a single kick note in between. So it suddenly goes from that one single note really changes things. Right? You put the backbeat on it, and you get this. And then I clicked my sticks together. So yeah, that's the whole thing, and it's super simple but sounds super killer, especially when it's put into that piece of music with those just screaming guitars. Dave Amato, by the way, is the lead guitarist in REO Speedwagon, so you know it makes sense that he's a killer. And Mick Mahan, who played bass, is with Pat Benatar. So those guys are absolute monster players, and they made that song really, really happen for me. Really cool. So I thank those guys a ton as well. So yeah, Toby, that's funny. That's funny. I'm gonna put that up. There it is. That's right. I probably did. Maybe a little. I wonder if I can do that now. There you go. That's funny. Okay, so what's Kendall saying here? Yes, that's right. I am definitely a marching snare drum dude. That's for sure. So thank you so much to everybody that's stuck around tonight. I have one other final announcement to make tonight. I had announced that I had switched stick companies several months ago, and I sort of spoke a little bit too soon on that because I made a decision to move to a particular company, and after I made the announcement, I determined that it wasn't the right fit for me. So there. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. The guys at Vader were great. I liked them a lot. There's no hard feelings. It just wasn't the right fit. So I actually had been interested in another company for some time, and a very good friend suddenly became part of the company. And I think I was one of his first phone calls because he knew I had left my previous company, and he wanted to know if I had signed the contract with Vader, and I said not yet. So I am very pleased to announce tonight that I am now, and you can check their website as of today, I am now playing innovative percussion drumsticks. I'm very, very pleased with the quality level of these things. They're very, very well done. It's a smaller company located in Nashville. They make all their own sticks in their factory right there in Nashville. In my hand is the Chad Wackerman signature model. I do like this stick quite a lot. It's made from heartwood hickory, so it's a little denser and a little more heavy probably than what I'll end up playing. But it's such a durable, great sounding drumstick. And yes, those of you that aren't drummers, the drumsticks make quite a difference in sound. And interestingly, Toby, I see you commenting there. Thank you very much. Yesterday, so my phone rang. Let me tell you the story. My phone rang a couple of weeks ago, and it was Herman Matthews. Hey, bud. Yeah, Herman. Can I come track at your studio? Yes. Now, in case you don't know who Herman is, Herman plays drums with Tower of Power and Kenny Loggins and Richard Marx and Meredith Brooks and Teresa James and he's literally drumming royalty. So when Herman calls, you say yes. So he booked it to come in last Thursday, a week ago today, actually, to come in a week ago today, and I had an emergency root canal. Yay! So I spent several days in absolute, horror show of this root canal problem. Had to cancel on him. Well, he rebooked, and he came in yesterday and gave me a master class in how to play a Texas shuffle. Well, really, it was how to teach how to play a shuffle that's not quite a Texas shuffle, but make a producer think it's a Texas shuffle. Yeah, that's what it was. And he was great, and I like him a ton anyway. Herman's a great guy, and he brought with him some of his famous Little Herman's brittle. If you ever want peanut brittle, get some of Little Herman's. I'll show it to you next week. Anyway, he was playing innovative percussion, and I thought that was a great little bookend. I loved the fact that he was playing innovative percussion drumsticks, and I didn't even tell him, but I had gotten the contracts yesterday while he was here. They came in while he was here, and I signed them this morning. And so officially, I am now an innovative percussion drumstick artist, and I'm very happy to be there. Thank you to everybody, Mark Branson in particular, for bringing me aboard. Please check them out online, innovativepercussion.com, and we'll see you on the websites there. Try them out. I think you're going to be very, very impressed. I know I have been. So finally tonight, we'll be doing this again next week. I don't quite have a guest booked yet on purpose. I'm thinking about doing a drumming night next Thursday, and we'll be doing a whole lot of banging on things, but it'll be a lot of fun to just get to play a bit, to have some drum conversations. Any questions that you've been wanting to ask me about drumming stuff, whether it's the music life, how to play a particular thing. I saw earlier, Kendall, that you had asked Tyler about the left foot. I forgot to ask him that. I'm sorry about that. But there are a lot of little tips that we can talk about, and I'm going to go over some of the very, very basic things that I do every time I play to make sure that I'm doing my absolute best. And yes, Toby, Herman will be a guest on here. Believe me, we've already had the discussion. So Herman will be coming along as well. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you have enjoyed it. The new studio, thank you for your comments about it. It's been a long time coming. I've had a great time getting it together. I'm thrilled that it's gotten together. It's going to be a lot of fun on Twitch. We're going to have a lot of stuff happening over there. Facebook Live will continue as well. So with that, I will take my leave tonight, and I hope that you're all doing well and staying safe. Get your vaccinations. I can't wait to get mine so that I can get out and get back to doing some things. Please take care of yourself and your loved ones. Wear your mask and all of those things that we're supposed to be doing. It's a minor, minor, minor sacrifice that we can make personally for the greater good of people around us, and I'm monumentally in favor of that. Anything I can do to make somebody else's life better, I like to do that. So thank you again for sticking with me tonight, and I will see you next week.